All right. Welcome to our second installment of the Karger webinar series from Frankfurt Book Fair in the course of Frankfurt Book Fair 2021. As you might be able to see, I'm actually in Frankfurt and on our little booth at the stand. Normally, we would meet all of you people on site and face-to-face, but we're happy that we have the opportunity to have this webinar and move to a digital place to still interact with you. Just some very short introductions. My name is Julia Kasbaum. I'm the Karger manager for academic and research institutions, and it's my honor to host this event today. To start off, just two short housekeeping items. Number one is this event is being recorded. We will make the recording available to you afterwards. The second thing is at the end of this webinar, we do have a short survey which you can fill in, and you can also select that you would like to get some additional information on the topic that we're discussing today. So the topic that we're discussing today and the format of this webinar is a guided discussion with my colleague Joachim, who I am going to introduce to you in just a second. We will also include a demo of the tool that we're showing you today. At the end, we will have a short question and answer section. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask, please feel free to drop them in the questions box on your control panel. We'll try to get around to all of the questions. Should anything be left open, we're happy to follow up on the questions afterwards. So this event today is called Highlights from the Karger portfolio for healthcare professionals. The tool we're going to look at today is called DermaCompass. To start with, just a very short bit of background on who Karger Publishers is. So we are a family-owned independent publisher in the healthcare sector, producing content for every stakeholder in the healthcare sector. So today we're going to look at healthcare professionals as a stakeholder group. We will find some other webinars in the course of Frankfurt Book Fair that look at other customer groups that we have. So it's kind of my honor to introduce Joachim to this webinar. He's the head of the clinical and patient markets department at Karger Publishers. He has a special interest in communication of healthcare and healthcare information, and a special interest in the topic of patient centricity. And I think that is something that we're going to dive in today as well. So welcome, Joachim. I will start off with the first question, and I think we just dive right into it.
Sure.
So question number one. Before we start with the product introduction, can you name 3 reasons why this tool is worth investing in, either from a personal perspective or from a user perspective?
It's a kind of a mixed view, actually, with the benefits for users and also what I think makes DermaCompass very worthwhile using. And there might be more than 3 reasons, so I'm just talking freely here. I think the first reason really to use this platform, this tool, is the sheer amount of content it holds for dermatologists. We're talking about 370 diagnoses in dermatology on that platform, 450 differential diagnoses, over 150 therapies to research over, and a huge image gallery and library with over 6,000 dermatological images there. The platform is constantly updated, and all of these facts and numbers together, I would say, make a perfect companion for a dermatologist, but also for general practitioners who have not an expertise which is comparable with the one of a dermatologist in their daily practice. The tool is also great because it's not only a web tool, which I'm showing today in the live demo. It also comes with a companion app with the same content but different features. So it caters to different situations in daily work. and that of course makes it worthwhile using as well. I think one important point, and maybe that's the third one then, is also to mention that it is very easy to use. The design is very straightforward, and this caters to a pain point of HCPs, healthcare professionals generally, and so also for dermatologists, which is a chronic lack of time they have. This means the platform should be nice to use, so to say, easy to navigate, and I think we managed to do that while developing the DermaCompass web version and also the app.
All right. Would you say, just a short follow-up question,
Sure.
would you say this tool functions well in translating information and especially catering to this customer group that it's aimed at then?
Certainly. I mean, the translational aspect is also an important one. At Karger, we have something like a leitmotif, if you will, which says everything we do and publish is based on science, and that goes for DermaCompass as well, of course. One indication for that is that users will find scientific references for all of the handbook entries that DermaCompass holds. And of course, the editor-in-chief and also the group of experts writing and producing the platform and the handbook part, of course, are all renowned scientists. So we are taking the most current information from research in dermatology, translating it to a tool that is made for practice in dermatology. So yes.
All right, brilliant. So I think the next step would be me asking you for a demo. I want to warn the audience, because you kindly warned me before we started this webinar that some of the images might be drastic, to put it into layman terms, I guess. So just a fair warning for anyone who might be squeezy. But I would say let's start with the demonstration.
Thank you. So I will share with you my screen. And just a short reconfirmation. Do you see my web browser now?
Yes, we do.
Okay, great. So we're not starting with dermatological images. I'm keeping that the best for last, so to say. I will start right at the beginning. Where can you find DermaCompass? There are two ways actually of accessing DermaCompass. One is via the Karger webpage, which you see here. That is karger.com/DermaCompass, and you will land on this landing page here, where you have a bit more information about DermaCompass. You can see here the entryway for the desktop version. You have an area here where you can go through to the iOS and Android stores to download the companion app that I mentioned earlier on. You have a synopsis of the current features. And as I don't have time to show the app today, here's a short glimpse of how the view is in the app. On the far left, you see a table of contents of the handbook. Then you see a typical handbook entry and some of the images we were talking about. And of course, you have information here as well on the editorial team. So whenever you would click to this desktop version, you would arrive here on DermaCompass itself. That is the second way you can enter, which is dermacompass.net. You have to log in. There is a very easy way to sign up. There's different sign-up ways, of course, depending on if you are an individual or an institution like a university library giving access to hundreds of people, for example. But once you're in, this is the view you see. One thing to highlight maybe is in the far right corner up here. Worth mentioning is that DermaCompass exists in two languages, English and German until now. This is not a mere translation of the navigation part. It, of course, encompasses as well the complete content. The tool started out in in German only. The English version was published almost a year ago, but it's the same content and the same text in here. So the starting page, as you see, is quite sleek. The most important part here is, I think, the search box, where you can start right away. If you're looking for a certain disease, for example, you want to look up, you could as well go to the handbook part here, where you have a full table of contents, alphabetically sorted, all of the diseases that are mentioned in these 370 diseases we have so far. By the way, a dermatologist by training, of course, knows many of these diseases. I was once told that from the heart, they should be able, in daily practice normally, to diagnose around 200 dermatological diseases. However, there is far more out there, and the 370 diagnoses we have so far, and that's a number that is still growing, also doesn't cover it all, meaning that we already provide dermatologists with twice as many diagnoses they should know by heart, actually. So you could either pick a disease here, or as I said, you could search for it, and I'm just going to demonstrate this because this is, of course, a nice gimmick here. Let's say we're looking for rosacea. You see that you have the autocomplete running here, and I can pick rosacea as a disease. You will see when this topic was last updated, actually that was only a few days ago. On the left-hand side here, you see the handbook part containing synonyms, for example, the definition of the disease, the epidemiology, which is very interesting information, of course, the disease classification, clinical features, the diagnosis, how does a dermatologist get to a diagnosis of rosacea, possible localization, meaning where does a dermatological lesion happen on the body, if it is or if it were rosacea, so in that case the face and sometimes the upper body, and many, many other points that are really standard points a dermatologist needs to know and or consider, down to the therapy part, where of course suggestions are for dermatologists how rosacea can be treated, including drug agents as well. And as I mentioned already, you have a full list of references here that might point you further to scientific content around rosacea. Now, going back, another important part of DermaCompass per se is the topic of differential diagnosis. The way that dermatologists work is often weighing one disease against another to get to a conclusion which disease it actually is. And I will also tell you in a bit why this is. So here you have an area where you have skin diseases which could be confounded with rosacea if the right tests, for example, are not taken to come to a diagnosis. So if you were interested to compare rosacea, let's say, with acne vulgaris, you could open acne vulgaris as well and compare the contents one to each other. Why is this comparison an approach that dermatologists take? That is because they are working image-based in a first instance. And this is where our image library comes in handy, of course. I mean, we all, I guess, have been to see a dermatologist in our lives. So what they do is, at first, they look at our skin. And they need images also to come to a diagnosis and get some orientation. And this is what you find here. So for rosacea, for example, we have 15 images here, which you can all click through. So different localizations on the body of rosacea. And you see they look very different in cases. You could as well enlarge these pictures. So they're all high resolution, really helping in dermatologists' everyday work. They're downloadable. They have this watermark here. They can be used also citing them. So that all is part of DermaCompass here. The next section is the image gallery, because it's another way to go about identifying a disease or finding a diagnosis. And as Julia pointed out, this is nothing for the faint-hearted. Unfortunately, skin diseases have the tendency to look quite gruesome. So I'm trying not to spend too much time here. I'm just showing you something very neat, which depicts also a step in finding a diagnose. And you see these filters here where you have localization, arrangement and distribution, efflorescence, and other lesion details. Again, going back to a patient-doctor interaction, a doctor will have a look at the patient's skin, and they need to describe, also to sort possibilities in their head, the lesion, which is an abnormality of the skin or a disease of the skin. So, for example, they could say, this lesion is on the neck, and they select the neck here and search for it, and they will get images around skin lesions on the neck. And then you could also go further and say, is it, for example, a symmetrical pattern? Is it linear? Is it follicular? All of these different parameters. And the efflorescence is something very important. You could have plaque, it could be plaque, it could be bullae, it could be tumors, pustules, and so on and so forth. That's all parameters that help a dermatologist to get to first idea about a diagnosis, and then also weighing one diagnosis against the other. I'm just looking for one picture to show you that. So you could go directly here and you would get to a possible disease, again with all of the descriptions, different differential diagnoses which are not maybe what you're looking for. So this is really coming in handy. And this is really very much it. As I said, it's very clean and sleek. But again, I think one of the biggest benefits for dermatologists is the sheer volume of contents in there, and the fact that it works so easily. Now, as I can show you the app, I just want to spend some remarks on the app. As I said, the content on the app is the same as in the web version. The difference is, for the web version, you actually need an internet connection. For the app, you don't need that. The app is also downloadable for free in app stores, so you don't have to pay anything. You just have to sign up. And it downloads the complete content, which is handy because the app, of course, was developed for a different use case. If you look at the web version, this is for sitting down in a doctor's office on the ward, for example, whenever they have time and they get their heads around patient files or something like that. They need the time, and they also need a bit better features, larger screens, and so on and so forth. So this is what a situation the web version was designed for. Or imagine a private practice, for example, where doctors would usually be working with desktop PCs. The mobile app, on the other hand, is really for quick lookups, for example, on the ward, whilst between patients, shortly before or after seeing a patient, to already pre-sort ideas, for example, decide, okay, which tests do I have to be arranged for this patient, things like that. And one feature that the web application, the web version, doesn't have, but that is in the mobile app, is an image comparison, where you can get to differential diagnosis, comparing a number of different images that you can look up, of course, and then you will be led towards the right part of diagnosis, which is a very nice feature as well. So these are the differences. As said, the same content, but for different use cases, simply.
Do you see specific regions of the world opting for the app rather than the web version?
I wouldn't think it's a question of the region, to be very honest. It is still very tricky to predict what the acceptance of mobile apps versus desktop tools would be. There is a lot of thinking and talking about demographics, of course, but we also learned, just as others over the years, that, for example, age, where everybody thought younger people would be more inclined to use apps than older people, doesn't really, I mean, it plays a role, but it's not a significant difference it makes. I think it is really the work situation that makes a difference. So staff in clinics, in hospitals, used to be on their feet all day, I think are more likely to use the app as compared to, for example, faculty in universities, residents that commute in between hospitals and university should also be more inclined to use the web version, for example.
Right.
But regionally, of course, the languages are a limitation right now. I mean, we're planning in investing in additional languages for this tool as well. But right now, of course, we can only cover the German-speaking region and all of the countries with English as a native language, or at least an official language, which are a lot of countries already. And now I'm getting stripes because the sun comes out.
All right. I think we switch back from the demo. Thank you. All right. So that would bring me to question number 3, which would be, if you had to name the key feature of the product, what would that be and why? And how does the tool fit into practice?
Yeah, I think coincidentally I already answered that question, but I'm happy to repeat, maybe in different wording. I think, and this is not even a feature actually, the fact that DermaCompass exists in a web version and a mobile app is an important and very good feature of this service, or a characteristic of this service we're offering. And within DermaCompass, really on the app side, this very neat image comparison feature, and on the web version, the richness of information you also get in using the handbook part together with the image library, I would say, are very important features. What we also saw, I mean, we were comparing with some competitors as well, is that comparing to handbooks, the setup and the design of these pages is really clean and sleek. It is very easy to navigate through it. We've seen competitor products where it's a bit more bulky, or it's more difficult with more clicks back and forth to get to where you actually want to go. There are other competitor products, especially on the web version side, which are free. However, some of them are a bit outdated, not as regularly and constantly updated as DermaCompass, and some of them are very heavily sponsored, which is something that's also possible for DermaCompass. So there are possibilities for industry to sponsor, for example, the Access for Societies or whatever it might be. However, we have very well thought through areas on the website where, for example, sponsoring messages and advertising can be placed so they don't disturb the text actually. And we've seen competitor products where you have them scattered all over the place, which of course also is, yeah, it is influencing the user experience in a negative way, and we don't have that, and it will stay like that as well.
All right. That brings us to the end of this question part, actually. I'd like to remind the audience that they can drop questions in the question box. If you have any, please feel free to post them. I do have a follow-up, if you don't mind, and that would be, can you tell us a bit about where the idea for this tool came from?
Yeah, so to be very honest and humble, we didn't have that idea. The DermaCompass is actually a joint venture between Karger and a company called Dermabond, which is from Zurich in Switzerland. Dermabond itself is a company that started as a startup between Professor Navarini, who is the editor-in-chief of DermaCompass, and a close friend of his who owns a software company. So they have invested in several projects together around dermatology always, because Professor Navarini is a dermatologist. So he used to work at the University Hospital of Zurich, at the University of Zurich. And by now he's moved to Basel, so he is a professor at the University of Basel now. And they had the idea Actually, we got in contact because via a journal that was an existing contact already, and they were looking for a partner to actually finalize DermaCompass as a service, as an app. And we started with the mobile app actually. So that's how we got in touch. We further developed it with them. Then just a few months ago, actually in August, we went live with the web version, which we developed together with them. And this is the partnership where this came from. The good thing is, of course, that we have a direct connection and channel to HCPs for which this tool was made. So we get instant user feedback. And the community of users is, of course, today far beyond only Switzerland. So we have users all over the world, and we get feedback from them as well, which we welcome as input for further developments as well. Yeah, so that's who brought the idea to us.
All right. We have a couple of questions.
Okay.
Two of them are related to the images that we just saw.
Yeah.
Can you tell us where the pictures are coming from, if that is possible to say?
The pictures come from the experts that work with us as authors. So many of them from the team around Professor Navarini, and they are real patient pictures, of course, from their daily practice, which were taken over many years actually. So that is one part of the image stock we have. Of course, using these images follows all of the rules that the experts need to be careful with, the same rules when, as if they were writing a case report, for example. So they need the patient's consent to use these. They need to be anonymized. You might have seen that some of the pictures were pixeled if there were faces to see. And as I said, they've grown over time. And additional members of the expert group were also bringing new images in. However, we're also actively hunting for pictures, if you want, by inviting new experts from other parts in the world, for example, to join and collaborate with DermaCompass. So, for example, for now, we are working on a part of the image gallery which will be dedicated to dark skin, which is comparably difficult to find in Central Europe. However, of course, it is in many cases much more difficult to do a diagnosis on dark skin because the lesions aren't visible as easily, for example, or they look differently. So this is something we're investing as well.
All right, that sounds very interesting. Another question we have is in the citations that you showed on the web version.
Yes.
I am guessing it's not only Karger sources that are being referenced, correct?
No, it's there will certainly also be Karger sources, but not only. So this platform is not based on what we publish. It really is published on the relevant and latest outcomes in dermatology in the medical or health sciences publishing world. And I didn't show you this, but we are currently also working on linking out all of these references, meaning the user could go directly from the reference to the article, the original article, if they wanted.
All right, brilliant. So I think this brings us very close to the end of this webinar. I'd like to thank you, Achim, for this very nice presentation. I'm going to point out 2 more webinars that we're offering in the context of Frankfurt Book Fair. So tomorrow, Joachim and I talk about the waiting room. If you have the time, feel free to join our event. It's tomorrow at 11 Central European time. And we have another quite large event, and that is the live pitches for the Vesalius Innovation Award. That is also happening tomorrow at 3:30 Central European time. So if you have the time, feel free to join us for these as well. Once again, thank you to Joachim for this presentation, and thank you for the audience for your time. It was a pleasure, and I hope you get to enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Take care.